Sick.
At home.
Have you ever felt that way?
City. Coming home again.
Dear listeners of Radio One, it is Friday night and we're in our studio as usually from 9 p.m. Stephen has left me for now, but I'm not alone here in our studio. I'm here with Bruce Matzkin, an American in Yerevan who has a very special life story to tell us. A lawyer by profession, right?
Correct.
But a singer by choice. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm very happy to be here.
How do you feel?
I feel good. I feel at home in Armenia. I almost feel guilty because you're supposed to have guests who feel homesick at home in Armenia, but I feel more homesick when I go back to the U.S. to be back in Armenia.
Well, you still have that feeling, so that's fine, no matter where you are. So I read your bio, Bruce, and it seems that your life has a lot of the level-headed rational planning that goes into living in the American paradigm. How did you come to the decision of relocating to Armenia?
Well, it's very interesting. I hadn't really traveled much in my life and certainly hadn't lived overseas. But in the summer of 2000, I met, I was at a golf resort for an annual golf trip in Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. It so happened that a number of Armenians had come over that summer with visas to work in the U.S. and got placements, job placements. And so I met this Armenian woman who happened to be placed at a job in this golf resort as a waitress. And long story short, we met. She stayed in the U.S. We got married. And then 13 years later, she really wanted to return to Armenia, where her family is. And I came with her. And so after 13 years together in the U.S., we moved to Armenia around August of 2013. And I come to love it here very much, and I feel very close to this place and to the people. But the most ironic thing is now my wife has returned to the U.S.
Oh, really?
And over a year ago, and I'm staying here.
Oh, wow, you guys switched places.
It's quite interesting and ironic, yes.
Yeah, but what do you do now?
Well, I still maintain a sort of a semblance of a law practice back in Connecticut, my home state. Although it's not a full-time law practice, I because of the internet and email and Skype, I'm able to continue to handle some legal matters even though I'm here. Pretty much I could be sitting anywhere in the world or behind a desk in Connecticut, and you could do almost all the same things except, shake the hand of your client across your desk. And if there's a court date, then I'll have a colleague back in Connecticut, go to court. So I still do that from here, but I also have gotten involved in other things, including starting the first Grateful Dead cover band in Eurasia, let alone Armenia. And now, the Grateful Dead is a very legendary American rock band, and they're virtually, or were virtually unknown in Armenia. But we're trying to change that. So for almost 2 years now, we've been sort of spreading the Grateful Dead's music, playing around in the pubs. And it's come to be a big part of my life here. I love it very much. And I've met so many people doing this. And it's nothing I ever would have done in the U.S. Another part of living in Armenia is I've reinvented myself. I'm doing things that I've never would have dreamed of doing back in Connecticut in the U.S., such as starting a band. I've never done that. I was never in a band. I don't play any instruments. I'm the singer, and I found some very talented young Armenian musicians to learn the songs and back up, and it's been a wonderful experience.
Cool. So Armenia is really good to you in a creative matter.
It is, and I've made many more friends here in the 3 years I've been here than I had made in 25 years in the U.S.
Wow.
The people here are very welcoming, very genuine. And I've become very close with a lot of people here. It's been a tremendously positive change in my life.
Oh, that's so nice to hear. And so you're kind of an ambassador of Grateful Dead.
I guess you could call me. You could call me that because especially since they were so unknown here. I like to go to pubs, and I'd see a lot of bands playing Pink Floyd and Guns N' Roses, Knocking on Heaven's Door. Every band would play this. but nobody knew the Grateful Dead, and so
so unfair.
I came up with the idea, let's get some Grateful Dead music going here, and and I hosted an open mic at a pub called The Station on Parpetsy Street.
Yeah.
And so when I came up with this idea, I would start to speak to musicians who would come in there and perform, and say, "Hey, I want to start a band, the Grateful Dead." "Oh, who's the Grateful Dead?" And I would explain it to them, and finally a couple of people came through, and we started learning songs together, and we started playing out at pubs, and now we're a pretty well established Yerevan pub underground band.
Oh, that's neat. And I'm
Dead
pretty
Walking.
sure, Dead Walking. I'm pretty sure that there are a lot of bands, American bands, that people around the world are not really aware of, and also Armenia included in this
True.
list. Yeah. Why Grateful Dead? I mean,
Well,
why? Is it your favorite group, or
Yeah, well, the Grateful Dead.
any other reasons?
The Grateful Dead is actually an entire subculture in the U.S. They were extremely famous. More people have heard of their leader, Jerry Garcia, than the actual band, the Grateful Dead. But they go back to the mid-'60s, and even today, after Jerry Garcia passed away in 1995, the surviving members have continued on with their own bands, and they continue to play their music. But in the last, especially since Jerry passed away, there have been literally hundreds and hundreds of Grateful Dead tribute bands formed in the U.S. throughout the entire country. In every state, there are Grateful Dead cover bands, and so the people who grew up with them and really loved their music and went to their concerts still have a chance to see their music played throughout anywhere in the U.S. But here, as I said, strangely, because many of the most famous American bands are very well known here, but they weren't. And so we're changing that because it's great music. It's not like heavy metal or anything like that. It's nice
soft
listening music, and it's rock and blues and country and wonderful songs. And, the people who come to our shows really enjoy it. We're a fun band. But we're trying to get more people to discover us. It's very difficult to get more new people to come and try to market the music and the band.
Oh, it's a matter of time, I think. Could you please tell us more about Fernando Abgarian and his open mic performances and being a shaman of the sixth sense?
Okay, so Fernando Abgarian is I met Fernando actually at the synagogue in Armenia. Now, a lot of people don't realize there's a synagogue here off of Tigran Metz on Nardos Street called the Mordechai Navi Religious Center, and there's a very small group of Jewish people in Armenia, and I'm one of them. And so is Fernando. So I met him the first autumn I was here, and he was a young kid, 18 years old, very curious, very smart, speaks 5 languages. We became very, very good friends, and he would come to the open mic at the station and became a fixture at this open mic. He would play a spoof of the song Gangnam Style.
Oh no!
and it was called Kim Jong Style. It's making fun of Kim Jong Un, the North Korean leader. Yeah. And it became very popular at this open mic. Fernando would get up there and sing it, and people would go crazy for it. And he would do some other. He would do "Du Hast" by this German.
The German group.
And some other songs. Rammstein, exactly. and "It's a Wonderful World" he would play. Anyway, so Fernando, he got into this shamanism, like fortune telling and amulets, and a friend of his got him hooked up on the very popular, I understand, Armenian television show, The Sixth Sense. Yeah. And he became a regular cast member on The Sixth Sense for one full season, I think 2 seasons ago. And so he became sort of a celebrity, and we'd be out, walking around, and people would come up to him and say, "Hey, you're Fernando from The Sixth Sense," and I was like, "Oh my God, you're famous." And then Fernando last winter got conscripted into the Armenian army, where he has served since then, and he was served in the 4-day war in April.
Wow, good for
in
him.
Karabakh. Yeah, we're very proud of him. He's my little brother, Fernando.
Oh, this is really neat. Bruce has got a lot of stories to tell us, but We're gonna come back to our studio after a little advertisement break. Stay tuned. Stay with us on Radio Van 103.0. Homesick at Home.
Радио
Ван. Реклама на Радио Ван. Нас слушают дерзкие.
Յուկոմը գործարկում է Հայաստանում առաջին 4G+ ցանցը եւ անցնում նոր արագությունների։ Մինչև 250 մեգաբիտ վարկյան ինտերնետ կապի միասնական օպերատորից։ Յուկոմ։
Для рекламы звоните 540002.
Radio Van. Hot, fresh,
And ready to go.
103.0.
Ina MK.
And Steven Oxner.
Every Friday night
With someone new. Homesick.
at home.
And we're back in our studio with Bruce, speaking about his life story and all the musical experiences that he had in Armenia. Not only. So I have a question for you, Bruce. How do you feel?
I feel great. I feel great. It's a lot of, this is just another cool experience to be on your show. Things that I, never had opportunities to do back home. Such as being on Yerker Media's morning show.
I saw that.
Yerker Today. A couple of years ago, I was asked to come on and speak about Halloween in the U.S. on Halloween. It so happened.
That's
the show
a debate story.
It was a lot of fun. So I show up and I had my face all painted like a demon, and what I didn't realize was that I was actually there to debate, good or bad Halloween, good or bad, and I was debating with the very famous priest, Father Shmavon.
Yeah, I know him. Hi, Teshmavon.
And so he was on one side, and another gentleman, Arsen Garabidian, singer,
Yeah,
and myself, and another woman, Sonia, a sociologist.
Yeah.
And then there's the host, and she's asking us to questions about Halloween, and what I was surprised at was that Father Shmavon and Arsen Garabidian, they were basically ragging on Halloween. We do not want Halloween in Armenia. It's a Western thing, and it's against our culture. And I'm just saying, oh no, it's just a fun. It's a party. There's no religious thing about it. It's not a religious holiday.
That's an attitude.
Yeah, kids
thing.
love it.
Yeah.
Little kids in the U.S. would be devastated if Halloween, suddenly didn't exist. And, so it was that kind of back and forth. And what was really funny, though, was this show in Armenian. And so I had an earpiece, and the producer was in the other room to translate when they spoke so I could respond. So what would happen is, Father Shmavon or Arsen would talk for 5, 6, 7 minutes, and they would be gesticulating with their hands, and then it would be my turn to respond. And so I'm waiting for the translation, and the producer said, he said Halloween is very bad. And that was it.
That's a really detailed one.
Yeah, after like 7 minutes of speaking, that was the translation. So it was very fun. And then I ran into Father Shmavon. Really, I had.
Did you come to any conclusion at the end of this dialogue?
Other than that, there's sort of this, I guess, mentality of probably with some older folks here that the Halloween is somehow some evil.
Well, there are a lot of protests here.
Against Halloween?
No to Halloween.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of pubs and restaurants that celebrate this holiday, and there are two things. Some people say, we have our own Armenian holidays. Why not promote those?
Right. Why do we need Halloween?
Yeah. Why do we?
But if if you go around the pub scene, especially Pushkin, Parpetsi, Seryan, Mashtot, on Halloween, it's very, very popular. I mean, every pub was packed with people in costumes, and so maybe it's just sort of a subculture here. In the U.S., it's part of the culture.
Any demonic stuff going on?
Well, no, just the look, just the
just
costumes.
people having fun.
But there's nobody who's doing any human sacrifices on Halloween. Maybe 300 years ago in Salem, Massachusetts, but. No, it's just a fun thing for people to get dressed up and party and go out and drink and see the cool costumes and have costume contests and house parties and stuff like that. So, and kids love it. It's just a fun thing for kids.
Yeah, of course. And another question. What place does nostalgia have in music?
What place does nostalgia?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, with the Grateful Dead, I think a lot of people who, I mean, you got to understand, some people literally revolved their life around this band when they were active. Some people would not work in a job, but they would follow the band around from city to city and see, 20, 30, 40 concerts in 2 months. And so for those people who nowadays are probably in their 60s or 70s, and for them it's nostalgia. But nevertheless, because the music itself has been kept alive by even new bands and young bands, there's a whole new generation of fans of this music that never could have seen the actual Grateful Dead perform. And yet they'll know all the music, they'll know all the songs, they'll go see this band or that band, or Bob Weir's current band. He was one of the original members, and now he has another band. And Phil Lesh, the original bass player, he still tours all year long. He's 74 years old, performing with his band Phil Lesh and Friends. And they get not just older folks who used to go to the Grateful Dead concerts, but also young people who couldn't have been even alive, to go to Grateful Dead concerts. So, for me, it's somewhat nostalgia. I kind of got into it in the late 80s, the last 8 years before Jerry Garcia passed away. And so, it's a lot of nostalgia for those days, because, boy, did we have some good times in those late 80s years and early 90s, going to concerts. But also any kind of music that, was sort of a soundtrack of your life when you were growing up. It's like it becomes a part of you, a part of your history. And so you're always happy to, you have memories from listening to, it'll conjure up memories to hear a song that was popular when you were in high school. Maybe it's not popular now, but you hear it and it's like, wow, this reminds me of this,
like
or
a
that,
time machine.
or that person, or that girlfriend, or that boy, that guy, or that teacher, or this event that happened when we, almost got arrested, doing whatever. So there's, music and nostalgia go hand in hand, I think.
And we're here in our studio enjoying Nina Simone in our background music, as our background music. And I'd also like to tell our listeners, if you're interested, you can go to a Facebook page, Dead Walking.
Yeah, Dead Walking Armenia is the best search,
yeah. Dead Walking Armenia. And just take a look and listen to some live concerts and performances that are available there. And also, if you'd like to listen to the concert live, you can go there this Sunday, right, at Barcode?
This Sunday at Barcode on Pushkin Street, right across from the Malchus Jazz Bar. And
what
also,
time is it?
I believe we'll start at 8:30.
Yeah, so guys, don't miss your chance to listen to Dead Walking.
But that's an acoustic show with only 4 of us. But then on the following Saturday, November 12th, the full band will perform at the 007 Pub, which is on the corner of Pushkin and Saryan.
Cool. And all of this is mentioned on your page, right?
The events are posted on our page.
And in case you guys do not have trouble finding the page, you can always go to Radio Van page or Homesick at Home page, and we have all the posts available there and all the information there.
That's great.
We'll come back in a little bit. Stay tuned. We're here with Bruce Matzkin speaking about his life story, Homesick at Home.
Радио
Ван. Реклама на Радио Ван. Нас слушают красивые.
Տարեկան 0% տոկոսադրույք, Samsung A3, ամսական 6250 դրամ, Samsung A5, ամսական 7920 դրամ, ապարիկ թե կանխիկ գները մնում են անփոփոխ, Mobile Center, բջջային հեռախոսների ամենամեծ ցանցը Հայաստանում, բանկի կողմից հաշվի սպասարկման վճարի մանրամասների համար խնդրում ենք զանգահարել 011 54 0000.
Для рекламы звоните 540002.
Radio Van 103.0 from Armenia with love. If you could go back,
Does that have anything to do with...
and what if that was your last chance?
Seeing how things turned out, would you now change...
Was that your decision?
I can't imagine what that would feel like.
We want to know.
We want to know.
We want to know.
We want to know.
We wanna know.
People say that within every person there is a whole galaxy.
We want to know.
Are people right?
From the creators of American in Yerevan, Ina M.K.
And Stephen Oxner.
Homesick.
At home.
Have you ever felt that way?
Coming home again.
And we're back in our studio with Bruce Matzkin, and we're speaking about music that he loves the most. And, dear listeners, we have a surprise for you tonight. Bruce is gonna sing for us a little bit.
I must make a disclaimer, however, that I was supposed to have my guitar player, David Salimi, on with me, but he was in Vanadzor and became very ill and couldn't make it to play live guitar. And so I wanted to, first of all, tell David, hope you're feeling better, brother.
Hey,
and,
David, recover soon.
And we'll see him on Sunday night, I believe, at the Barcode. And so in place of his live guitar, we found a good instrumental cover of one of our favorite songs that we play called Ripple, a very famous Grateful Dead song. And so with that backing recorded, I'm able to, give a semblance of our version of Ripple.
Yeah, we're gonna do it. Ready?
I'm ready.
Let's go.
If my words did glow with the gold of sunshine, and my tunes were played on the harp unstrung, would you hear my voice come through the music? Would you hold it near as it were your own? It's a hand-me-down. The thoughts are broken. Perhaps they're better left unsung. I don't know.
Woo!
I don't really care. Let there be songs to fill the air. Ripple in still water when there is no pebble tossed, no wind to blow. Reach out your hand. If your cup is empty, if your cup is full, may it be again. Let it be known. There is a fountain that was not made by the hands of men. There is a road, no simple highway between the dawn and the dark of night. And if you go, no one may follow. That path is for your steps alone.
Woo! Bravo!
Rippling still water when there is no pebble tossed, no wind to blow. Sounds better with the full band.
Yeah, woo! Bravo!
Well, thank you.
Thank you so much. That sounds so nice.
Yeah, it's a nice song.
I want to go to your concert.
I hope you do,
this
and bring
Sunday.
friends.
Yeah, sure.
And you can, of course, come Friday if you miss Saturday, next Saturday. If you miss Sunday, you can come next Saturday.
Cool. This is great. Thanks for your performance.
Thank you.
And once again, recover David.
Yes. David, get better.
Yeah, get ready for the concert on Sunday. And so, Bruce, can you describe the most wholesome experience you've ever had?
You're going to hit me with a surprise question like this? The most wholesome. I don't even know what the definition of this word is. Wholesome.
The most awesome.
Well, the most awesome experience I've ever had. Oh my God. Isn't this a family show?
Whatever you want.
Well, I tell you what, really, I mean, in all honesty, the whole experience of having moved to this place.
Well, if you need a little more time to think, I can bring you some synonyms of this word, like natural, healthy, nourishing, good.
Well, as I was going to say, all those things apply to my life, what has become my life here in Yerevan. And I say this really in all sincerity. It was, I couldn't know this at the time. In fact, the 2 months or so before I left, leading up to my leaving, I was really depressed and scared. But when I arrived, sort of the weight just flew off of my shoulders, and this new life for me has been a wonderful, wholesome, positive experience. But if you want some more specific things, I don't know if this is the most awesome thing, but I jumped out of an airplane a couple times when I lived in Los Angeles with a parachute. And a friend of mine took me rock climbing, which was very exhilarating because I'm afraid of heights. I guess the airplane too. So these are a couple of ways of how I overcame sort of my fear of heights. And I, trusted him because he was an expert with the ropes. And if I fell, he would just, dangle me and I'd be okay. And so these are a couple cool things I've done. And I understand here, I driving around Armenia outside the city, you realize this is like a rock climbing paradise.
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
surprised. I'm surprised that it hasn't been discovered more by like international rock climbers because there's so many unbelievable places. But I know some people who climb in Naravank, and it's a wonderful. We went out there after the Irani Wine Festival. We went to the monastery.
You do it here?
Did I rock climb? No.
No.
I'm not really a rock climber, but I've done it a couple of times, and it was.
So you didn't let your fear go like totally.
No, right, exactly. Well,
is that a phobia?
I'm willing to do it if I find people here who want to take me, and I trust them, then I would love to try it because, like I said, there's really amazing places to do it here.
Okay,
Yeah, it really is
I'll organize that.
cool. All right. Maybe I open my big mouth. Who knows?
Okay. Bruce, do you have one thing that you cannot live without?
One thing I cannot live without.
Yeah.
Milk chocolate.
Oh, that's it?
Well, you said one
okay,
thing.
that's one thing. Okay.
Well, it may be a little hyperbolic to say cannot live without it, but I would be pretty sad if I woke up tomorrow and somebody said the Grateful Dead ceases to exist and their music ceases to exist, and I have this knowledge in my head of having known this before, and now all of a sudden it disappeared. That would be a big bummer for me, I suppose. Maybe it's a little superficial to say some music that, my friends, my family back home, these are things I don't think I could be happy in my life without.
Oh, that's neat. And now we're gonna go for a music break, right? And we're gonna listen to the Grateful Dead tribute to the Grateful Dead, Bertha, performed by Los Lobos.
Good choice. We do this song.
Let's go. Homesick at Home. Stay tuned. Now, this is Homesick at Home on Radio Van, and we're here in our studio enjoying a nice chat, even between our music breaks, with Bruce. Bruce has a lot to say about his favorite band, the Grateful Dead. But I also have some other questions to you, Bruce. I read your bio, and there were so many things you managed to do during your 3-year stay in Armenia. Golf, open mic nights, synagogue.
Yes.
You're not a believer of the phrase "when in Rome, do as Romans do," are you?
I guess not, because there aren't too many golfers here, and there aren't too many Jews here, and there was nobody who knew the Grateful Dead here either.
Yeah, you know, my co-host Steven. Yeah, he performs in a junk folk group, which sounds in Russian "soskefal," which means a mullet sauce. Well, so would you like his junk folk group to come to Armenia for your music festival and tell us about the festival?
Junk folk.
Yeah.
Ah, interesting. Yeah, well, I'm glad you mentioned this. We have an idea, and I should say it's still just an idea, and we really hope to get it off the ground. But an Armenian from Germany was kind enough to offer the use of some land he has in Orgov on Mount Aragats for a music festival, and we came up with the idea to have a fundraiser to pay for university scholarships. We tentatively are calling it the Fund or Foundation for University Scholarships in Armenia. So that sounds nice. FUSA. FUSA.
Yeah.
And it's still not legally formed. However, it's an idea. And since when you want to have a music festival, almost the most difficult thing is probably finding the place to have it. But we have this place to have it. And so now the rest is planning and getting sponsors, vendors who will donate services that are needed, building a stage, providing busing, portable toilets, if we want to especially have an overnight, because there's plenty of room for camping and parking at this location. And so we thought of this idea to use this music festival as sort of a central event to raise funds for this scholarship fund. But if we're going to form this legal organization, we also see the potential to just solicit from donors all around the world, especially diasporan Armenians who would want to help, help young people here who might have economic disadvantages to be able to pay, to go to university. Because it's such a shame when anybody here or in the U.S. or anywhere else has the potential to be a successful college student, and then because of economic disadvantages, they can't pursue that opportunity.
Of course.
And that doesn't just exist here; it exists in the U.S. Sadly, throughout the U.S. as well. But I'm here, and I live here, and I love this place, and this is an idea I've had to try to do something positive and maybe make a difference. And I'm glad that I have this opportunity to be on your show to talk about this, because perhaps there are people out here listening tonight who might be interested to help with something like this.
Maybe this is one of your missions here.
This
is a great idea. So donors out there, people out there, investors, or people who would like to just join this really cool idea and we also need like a legal advisor and a marketing person and a social media person. We need all kinds of people to be on a team to make something like this successful. So if anybody is interested, they can contact me on my Facebook page, Bruce Matzkin, the only one in the world with that name. On Facebook. Well, you have two important things, the idea and the big desire to do something good. So I think you'll drag, just like I said during our break, that you're like a magnet.
I hope my magnetism works for this, because it's really the most, it would be the most worthwhile thing I've done here. And by all means, Steve's junk folk band would be more than welcome to be in the lineup. We would need some bands also, obviously.
Oh, this is cool. Steve, are you listening to us right now?
So
you're in.
He's got a gig maybe next August or September or thereabouts, if we can throw it together.
By the way, he's going to be here next week, so maybe you could
speak to him personally.
Yeah. So anyone who wants to join the FUSA team.
And if anybody knows Serge Tankian personally, ask him if he'll come and do a solo performance at this music festival.
I know a person who knows him.
That'd be great, because if he came, it would be no problem selling 2,000 tickets.
Oh, this is awesome. We have really awesome ideas here on air right now. And do we have to go for a break now? And our music director gives me a hint that we need to go. We're here still for another 15 minutes on Radio Van with our show Homesick at Home.
I am?
Yes, you are, Stephen, and I hope you come back here soon because, I'm managing here alone, but it's still something is missing, you know. I miss you, Stephen, and so I hope you're homesick. And we're back in our studio speaking with Bruce, and I have plenty of questions still, Bruce, because the more we speak, the more questions we have here. I hope you feel comfortable here in our studio.
I do. I'm having a really nice time, and it's like I said, just another cool experience that I would have never had back in the U.S.
And I hope you feel better now after the tea and after our communication.
Yes. As I told you,
the magic Armenian teas.
Yesterday was a rough day for me physically, but yes, I'm feeling better today, and the tea helped. Yes.
Yeah, something is going on with your team, with your band.
Yeah, I know. Me and then David got sick. Oh my goodness. I just hope we're all back in shape for Sunday night.
So from this moment on, it's gonna go up and all just
can't get any lower, so we can only go up.
Just right. So Bruce, people in Armenia talk about the similarities of Armenian and Jewish culture. They say that historical events have created a similar cultural identification. Would you say that is true?
In some respects, by all means. Well, for one thing, the obvious common history is genocide. Hitler was inspired by the Ottoman Turks having gotten away with a genocide of the Armenians during World War I. And famously, and some people may know this, but when Hitler was about to invade Poland, and he was receiving protests from some of his generals, how can we get away with this? They literally just wanted to invade Poland. He did, to take over Poland land for Germans and make more living area for Germans. And he said, who remembers the annihilation of the Armenians? And his point was, if the Ottomans can get away with their genocide of the Armenians, then why should we think we can't get away with what we're about to do? And really, I mean, there have been other genocides horribly in recent times, Rwanda and Cambodia and others. But the Armenian genocide and the Jewish Holocaust have the most similarities between each other. And they created these huge diasporas. Of course, the Armenian diaspora is a direct result of the genocide from World War I and the Jewish diaspora from World War II. The European Jews had to flee for their lives and went around the world, and then, of course, Israel was formed. And so I think as you grow, as people who come later grow up with parents and grandparents who lived in these times, it becomes a part of their identity. It becomes a part of just what they know about their people, and thus comes to be a part of what identifies them, even though they may not have been there. I wasn't alive during the Jewish Holocaust, and very few people are alive today who were alive back in World War I. But nevertheless, it becomes a big part of the cultural identity of the people, the Jewish people and the Armenian people, and so I relate, to Armenians in this respect. And
I know that you've been involved in some speech.
Yes,
right?
It's funny. Again, another person I met at open mic, Sonia Kalatranian.
The magic open mic.
Yes, Sonia Kalatranian, if I'm pronouncing her name correctly. A really lovely young lady who, she was working for a company that was putting on a genocide conference just before the 100th anniversary called Young People Against Genocide. And she asked me to be one of the speakers. I don't know why, because I'm not quite a young person. I was 50 at the time, and now I'm 51. But
no, really?
Yeah. But anyway, I was really honored.
You can just say that you're 30.
Oh, well,
something.
Thank you.
Nobody will believe that you're 50.
Even when I shave, I look even younger. But anyway, Sonia asked me to do this, and I had to write about a 5-minute long speech. I was one of about, 10 or 12 speakers, and it was at the AUA in their auditorium, and it was a very well organized forum for discussion and for just speakers to talk about various issues and aspects of genocide. And I wrote a speech that really jumped off of this Hitler quote. And my point of my speech was, we can never forget if we just forget about these things, that's the danger of them happening again. We can't just pretend that this is something that's in the past and it can never happen again, because it can, and it has, even as recently, you can look at what's happening in Iraq and Syria now as a genocide with ISIS killing Christians. But certainly in the 1990s, I remember I was in law school at the time in Boston and hearing about what was going on in Rwanda, and it was just mind-boggling to think that in this day and age that something like this can happen, where 1 million people are murdered, by their neighbors in 100 days, which is what happened in Rwanda in 1994.
So it's still happening.
It still happens,
unfortunately,
tragically, and the problem is countries that don't really have much of an interest in wherever it may be happening typically don't want to lift a finger. They're more concerned with the politics of sending their young people there to fight and maybe protect victims. But the citizens are going to be outraged if we lose some of our people there, saving Rwandans who we don't really have any reason to be interested in. And on the other hand, the other mentality would be, well, we should never stand by while something like this happens. We should, be willing to risk some of our lives to stop such an atrocity from occurring. We shouldn't let anybody in the world, suffer like this when we have the ability to just make a decision and put an end to it, which is pretty true in a lot of cases.
Well, thank you so much for willing to take part in such a speech and having your little influence or your words to say in this matter.
It was very interesting and educational for me as well. I'm not an expert on this topic by any stretch of the imagination, but it was just for some reason they asked me to do it. I was happy to do it, and
each opinion matters.
Yeah, and as I became married to an Armenian, I began to read a lot about Armenia and read some books. Such as Ambassador Morgenthau's story. He was the ambassador to the Ottoman Empire during World War I and gave his personal witness account of what was going on there. And his book is really one of the main historical sources of people who know this is a true story. This happened, unlike what you would hear in Turkey today, where it's denied and they pretend it did not happen.
And speaking of politics, what have you found out about the corruption in Armenian government, and how does this compare to the U.S. government?
Well, I think the comparison is that it's, from what I can tell in Armenia, it's more open and what's the word I'm thinking of? It's not as discreet. It's overt. There doesn't seem to be much efforts to keep it a secret. In the U.S., sure, there's corruption. There are corrupt politicians, and there are corrupt officials. But typically, they're doing their best to keep it under wraps, and they know that if they're caught, there's going to be bad consequences, and there typically is. And there have been Congress people who've gone to prison. President Nixon, who was forced to resign from office because of his corruption. With Clinton, it was a little different. His corruption was basically just having sex with, women, and the Republicans hated him so much that they decided to impeach him over him having lied about this, which really has nothing to do with any way of running the country or affecting people's lives. But the point is, exactly. from what I can tell here, from what I read and what I hear and speak to people about, it's pretty. It's pretty entrenched in the culture here, and it's sad because there's such wonderful people here, and the young people here are so smart and so talented, and they see no opportunity here, and so they want to leave. They want to go to Europe, and they want to go to the U.S. because that's where the opportunity is, and it's a tragedy for Armenia to lose these people.
Yeah,
and I
it
believe
really
is a white genocide.
We have a great generation.
And the population shrinks, and the talent goes overseas, and they're needed here, but the government doesn't do much to make it attractive for them to stay here, and that's what they should be doing. They should make people want to stay here. And how do they do that? Well, by making economic opportunity exist here, by having programs to help people pay for college, to have social services.
Sorry to interrupt you. By the way, you were participating in all the protests, like the Electric Yerevan.
Well, don't get me in trouble. I have to get another residency card in a few months.
Well, but this is neat.
Well, I attended. I wasn't certainly one of the speakers or the leaders, but when the electric protests broke out, I knew a lot of my friends who were going there, and I just figured if there's a little thing that somebody could do to just show their support, it's just to add another body to the crowd, because that's really what it's all about. The bigger the crowds, the more significant the protests are, and the more effect they can potentially have. And so my little way of helping is just to add my body to the crowd.
And those are peaceful protests, so
they were
for an idea.
and then of course we know what happened one night with the water cannons and,
and
the beatings and the arrests and so forth. And it's sad to see that.
Peaceful. I meant from the Protestant side.
Yes, they as far as I could tell were completely peaceful, and yet what we see, sadly, is sometimes the only way that the officials know how to deal with these things is to become violent and crack down. They're so threatened, by the show of unity by the citizens that they feel they have to exert muscle, and basically they're just trying to intimidate people to go home and keep your mouth shut. Just accept it the way it is. This is how we want it, for our own motives. And don't try to speak out, because this is what's going to happen to you. And of course, we see, many people who were imprisoned during Saznat Sarer, including Garo Yanukian, who is accused of supposedly on the phone giving aid to the men who took over the police station. He's been in prison now for 3.5 months without bail and without any, as far as I know, any real evidence that he committed a crime. He's gone on a hunger strike, and political prisoners is something that you don't have in the U.S. You don't. The people in power do not throw their opponents in prison in the U.S. That's one of the things that makes the U.S. special. But here, sadly, we're seeing this, and if Armenia really wants to become a true democracy, these are some of the things that need to change, including freedom of speech, not being afraid to be arrested and beaten by the police just because you're out there yelling and screaming about unfair electricity hikes and other types of oppression.
Is there anything you want to say about the U.S. presidential election?
Oh, don't get me started.
But we have a little time, so 4 minutes.
I mean, listen, I know a lot of people have problems with Hillary Clinton, and maybe with some good reason. But I have, never been so scared about the outcome of a presidential election as I am if Donald Trump wins. I am just perplexed that there could be as many people who support him as there are, with the things he's done, the things he's said, his history, his open lying, his he'll take one position because this interviewer seems to be in favor of that, and then the next day the opposite position because he wants to please this interviewer. He says things that's on the record, and then he'll say, "I never said that," and they'll play the video for him. "I never said that." I mean, it's just remarkable that anybody like him could have reached the heights that he has in this presidential election. And it's very scary because he has espoused what a lot of people consider fascist policies, surveilling Muslims, banning Muslims from the country. It just goes on and on. I mean, we don't have enough time to go through it all, but it's a long list of stuff.
Does this mean that you're for Hillary Clinton or you're...
I happen to be a staunch liberal Democrat, and so I'm actually I am for Hillary Clinton. I'm not just against Donald Trump. However, even if you're not a staunch Democrat or you don't really like Hillary, making sure he doesn't become president is as good a reason as any to vote for her, even if you have to hold your nose while you're doing it, because she will not ruin the United States. She will not have set it back 50 years. Donald Trump will.
See your position, and I would like to remind to our listeners that they have the chance to listen to you live this Sunday in Barcode, starting from 8:30, right?
8:30 Sunday, and then the following Saturday, November 12th at 007 Pub, also at 8:30.
Okay, Sunday is the acoustic version of Dead
Correct.
Walking, and next Sunday,
Next Saturday.
Saturday is the full band playing. So do
7
not
members.
miss this. Well, Bruce, thanks for being with us tonight.
Thank you, Ina.
I hope you
had a
enjoyed.
great time.
Is there anything you still want to say?
No, just I don't have too many opportunities to just sort of spout off about stuff, and there's nobody to sort of argue against me and try to shut me down. So I appreciate this opportunity to just do that, and you have a great show, and I'm really honored to have been asked to be on it. So thank you very much.
The last questions: are you homesick?
I think I might have already said this, but I feel more homesick now after being here for over 3 years. When I go back to the U.S., which I will be doing in a couple of weeks, for about 3 weeks, I'll feel more homesick there for coming back here.
Well, this is great. It's great to hear that you found a home here in Armenia.
I have.
And I hope that we'll meet again during the concerts. And dear listeners, you can go to Dead Walking Armenia page on Facebook and listen to some live shows that they're posted there, and also like the page. And do not forget to like our page, Homesick at Home. We're here every Friday from 9 to 10 speaking with people that are homesick being at home. Have a great weekend.